Hello, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Hailey Chappell. I'm a therapist and coach with 13 years of experience working with autistic people. I'm excited to talk with you about a topic that's really important to me because it's affected so many of the people that I've worked with, which is healing and self-acceptance for late diagnosed autistic people. This is a topic I've been passionate about over the years, and I think it's one that deserves a lot of attention. In recent years of my work, I've noticed more and more that many people are getting diagnosed or self-diagnosing with autism later in life, or starting to realize that they might be autistic after years of feeling like something just wasn't quite adding up. So if this sounds familiar to you, you're not alone and you're in the right place today. Each time this has come up, I've seen a lot of pain and struggles going on as a result of the invalidation over the unexplained struggles that people who are late or never diagnosed have faced for most of their life. And I know many people out there haven't even had the chance to be in therapy or get any kind of help on healing from this. So, when you got your diagnosis or did enough research and realized that the autism symptoms resonated with you, it can be a huge relief to finally understand why things have felt so hard and why social situations can be so draining. Or maybe you felt like everyone else around you got a manual to life that you just didn't get. But there's also a lot of other emotions. There may be grief, frustration, and even anger. You might be looking back and thinking about how different things could have been for you if you had known sooner, or if the people around you had just understood you better. These are all common struggles I hear of with people dealing with the autism that went overlooked for so long. Many people I've spoken to have spent a good part of their life giving their absolute best into a lot of things. Everything from school, work, friendships, chores, family expectations, and then just not getting the results they felt like they should or that they saw other people getting with even less effort. This leads to a lot of feelings of not being good enough or that something is just wrong with you as a person. Maybe you've spent years feeling like you didn't quite measure up to other people's expectations. Maybe you've been called lazy, difficult, or too sensitive, when in reality, you were just doing your best in a world that wasn't designed for the way you think and function. So now that you know you're autistic, there's a whole new other challenge, which is imposter syndrome. You may be wondering, am I really autistic, or is what I'm struggling with even this hard? Don't other autistic people have it way harder than me? You might be stuck with a lot of old voices saying you should be able to do this. Or maybe when you started telling people you're autistic, you got some unsupportive or invalidating responses like, you don't look autistic, or you're too social to be autistic. I hear these stories quite a bit from the people I work with. And if you're here today, you might have experienced some of these same painful things and maybe still experience them. It's so hurtful and it can feel hopeless to be constantly misunderstood, especially by the people you care about. After a lifetime of hearing these comments, it can be really hard to accept yourself because you start to believe these messages of not being good enough or feeling like you're always falling short. For a long time, you may have had no explanation for why these struggles were going on and why you had a hard time with things that other people just did not understand. So today we're going to dive into all of that. We're going to talk about the invalidation you may have experienced from others and from yourself, and how that makes self-acceptance such a struggle. And we're going to cover 3 simple ways you can start healing from those experiences. I'll walk you through these 3 practical steps to begin that healing process so you can start moving towards self-acceptance and feel more empowered with the knowledge of your diagnosis and understand more of the ways that it can be a strength and an asset to you. So by the end of our time today, you'll have some actionable steps to help you start healing and feeling more acceptance towards yourself. And if what we talk about today really hits home for you, I can share how to stay in touch with me and access more trainings to continue your healing journey. Okay, so let's jump in. We're going to start by focusing on the journey that you've been on up until this point in your life. It's actually going to be part of the first solution I walk you through a little later. So as I walk through these examples, just see kind of what resonates with you, what reminds you of your own experiences. So for most of your life, you didn't know you were autistic. You didn't know why things that seemed so easy for other people felt so hard for you. It can be like running the same race as a group of people, but having to do it while wearing a backpack of bricks. Now think back for a moment to being in school. Maybe you remember struggling with certain subjects or certain types of assignments because of the way things were taught just didn't make sense to you. So meanwhile, your peers seemed to just breeze through the same work without a second thought. And it wasn't just about the schoolwork either. There was the expectation that you should be able to sit still, focus, and manage your time. It might have been hard to transition from subjects and classes, or overwhelming to be in the cafeteria or the gym, while everyone else did this just fine. You couldn't easily do all these things. If you couldn't easily do all these things, it may have been felt like you were failing or inadequate as a person. The social side of school may have been an even bigger struggle for you, watching your classmates form friendships really easily or sit together while you stood on the outside and you weren't sure how to break into those circles. You may have tried to join in and felt really awkward, or maybe you said something that just didn't land right, and that experience really stuck with you the next time you were in a group of people. Maybe you couldn't pick up on subtle social cues that everyone else just seemed to get. Each time something like that happened, it reinforced this feeling that you were doing something wrong, but you didn't know what. For many of you, this wasn't something that just stayed at school. These struggles followed you home with parents and coaches that maybe had expectations for you that felt impossible to meet. You may have heard things like, you're not trying hard enough, or you're just lazy. This was heartbreaking and beyond frustrating when you were trying your hardest and just not getting results and then being criticized for it. You start to wonder, maybe I am lazy, or maybe I'm just not good enough. It's easy to start believing those things about yourself, especially when you're already comparing yourself to your siblings or your peers and feel like you're falling short. Then there's the sensory overload, the bright lights, the loud noises, and the constant buzz of the world around you that just no one seems to notice. It can be really overwhelming, and everyone else just seems to handle it just fine. Everyday sensory input might have been unbearable for you, but you were expected to keep doing the schoolwork that wasn't being taught in a helpful way, and navigate unspoken social rules you didn't understand, and meet expectations that seemed impossible for you, all while dealing with this sensory overload. And then you get told things like, you're overreacting, you're too sensitive, but that wasn't it. You were experiencing the world differently from those people, but no one knew it at the time. So over time, if these are resonating with you, these experiences have built up. Every moment of confusion and instance of feeling out of place, and every time someone dismissed your struggles, they start to pile on top of each other, and you just carry that weight with you everywhere you go. And then you start to believe it and internalize it and tell yourself, I just need to be better or try harder. And that weight gets heavier until it becomes a part of how you see yourself. So now later on in life, you've moved on from school, but these feelings and experiences have piled on and repeated in other settings, which increases the feelings that there's something wrong with you. So you may have started working or have a family and just still not have fully understood why you felt different. And then all those same voices from childhood just came back in saying, I should be able to do this. What is wrong with me? So if you're watching this, it's likely that something shifted at some point. Maybe you got a diagnosis or you did some research and came to the conclusion that you are autistic. And suddenly, so much of what you've gone through starts to make sense. You start reading about autism symptoms, and it feels like a light bulb goes off. This explains everything: the struggles with school, the difficulties with socializing, the sensory overload, it all fits. So there's relief in finally having a name for what you've experienced, and that's really, really helpful. But with that relief often comes confusion, imposter syndrome, and even a sense of loss. So you might be thinking, why didn't I know this sooner? Why didn't anyone see it about me? You might look back and wonder how different your life could have been if you had known. So maybe you feel like you've lost some time and you're having to race and catch up on things that you missed out on. And so that there's also doubt that comes up, even if you get the full confirmation, or even if everything about autism makes so much sense to you. You might still be asking yourself, do I really have autism? Am I just making this up? That's something I hear quite a bit from later diagnosed or self-diagnosed individuals. And when you share this diagnosis with your friends and family, they're questioning it too. They've known you your whole life, and um, they're just doubting that this could be going on with you, maybe because you've masked it so well. So that they might be well-meaning, but it can feel like another just punch to the gut and a way of invalidating your experience. So this makes you question yourself all over again. So that's the journey that a lot of late or never diagnosed autistic people have been on and are still on. Your experiences are real and your struggles are valid, and the pain you felt, whether from fitting it, not fitting in, or being misunderstood or being dismissed, it's something you don't have to carry alone anymore, because I hear these stories quite a bit. There's a lot of people out there dealing with having this gone overlooked and just wondering what could be wrong with them. So if this is like you, if you were following along and this has been like your story, let's jump into 3 simple steps you can start today to begin healing. Okay, so these steps are a journey and not a quick fix. Healing takes time, and what's important is that you're starting the process, and even just a little bit of, progress is going to feel big and helpful, and it can just keep growing in time. So, don't think that it's the end of it the first time you do any of these practices. So the first way I'm going to cover is kind of what we've been doing all throughout the training so far, is recognizing and acknowledging your unique journey. So you're going to look back at your life through a different lens at this point in time. The first step is recognizing that your path has been very different from the start. You've been experiencing the world differently, which is what we've been covering. You've been just having a whole different experience throughout school and learning and socializing, but you've been treated as if it's been the same as everyone else. So you look back on these painful, hurtful experiences through a new lens of understanding. So if you're feeling the pressure of trying to catch up to others or meet certain expectations you feel like you haven't been able to meet, you can recognize the reasons why, and easier to give yourself some grace on that. So you've been through unique experiences that have shaped who you are today. And maybe you struggled with subjects that were easy for other people, or socializing just felt so impossible for you. And the truth is, you were never actually behind. You were navigating those experiences on an entirely different landscape. And you had obstacles and challenges that no one else ever had to face, but they were completely invisible to you and to them. So the first part of this healing process is honoring that experience and recognizing the strength that you've developed, and no longer holding yourself to the same timelines as everyone else. Okay, so if you were reflecting along during the training, or if you had a completely different kind of experience than what I described, you can still walk through that process over and over again as you have these memories come up. To integrate this into your daily life, I encourage you to journal about it. Each day, take a few minutes and reflect on these experiences, whatever's coming up in your mind or your life, and being able to see it through a different lens. And some different things you can kind of write about are, what are challenges I face that others might not understand? How did I get through those challenges? What strengths or skills have I developed because of my journey? So, for example, maybe your heightened sensitivity to the world has allowed you to become more deeply empathic, and notice details that other people overlook. Or maybe your struggle to fit in socially has made you more thoughtful and considerate of other people who are being left out. So these are strengths you developed, and it's good to start recognizing those. As you journal, you'll start to see a fuller picture of how your path has equipped you with your unique strengths that are just as valuable as anyone else's. Okay, so the second thing you can begin doing today is to challenge and reframe your negative self-talk. So one of the wounds that you may have experienced is the voices in your own head that you've internalized, like, I'm not good enough, I'll never fit in, why am I not normal? And so these messages come from just a lifetime of being misunderstood or told you're too sensitive. So to begin healing from these, you can recognize that these negative thoughts are not reality. They are messages you've received over and over again. They're based on what others have told you and not who you really are. You can rewrite these over time and begin connecting with new thoughts that are more accurate to who you are. So the second step in this process is to challenge those thoughts as they come up for you and reframe them in a way that's true to you. So this is a practice you can incorporate daily, since you're thinking every single day. And you can take your reflection from the first step and all the times that others didn't understand your struggles, and notice the thoughts and beliefs that these experiences gave you. So become aware of the negative thoughts that are replaying in your mind in your everyday life. And when you catch yourself thinking a negative thought, pause and ask, what's the evidence? Is this even true? Or is this just an old message from having these experiences and not knowing what was going on? So begin writing these thoughts down in a journal and challenge it by asking yourself, is it the truth? So here's an example. If you have a negative thought like, I'm not capable of making friends, I'll always be alone, you can reframe it to something like, making friends has been hard for me, but it doesn't mean I don't deserve friendships. Or I'll never be successful because I struggle with certain tasks can be reframed to something like, I may approach things differently, but I'm capable of success. So this exercise is simple and powerful. You might not believe the new thoughts at first, but just like the negative thoughts, they can grow and take over with time and repetition and other types of healing that you're going to do. Okay, so remember that this process takes time. You're rewiring thoughts that have come in over and over, and it's not about fixing them overnight, but practice this every day and you'll start to feel some changes. Okay, and then the third step I'm going to cover is connecting with other people who understand your experience. So this has been an isolating thing that you felt alone on for a really long time. And if you feel like the people around you don't fully understand, that's even worse. And they might not, because they haven't lived it. But a helpful part of healing can be finding the people who have lived it and who can understand it without you having to explain. So I hear these stories time and time again in the work I do. People feel alone. They think they're the only one who feels the way that they do. And yes, you have a unique situation, but many people have spent time struggling in similar ways and not understanding why. And then they find out that there is an explanation called autism. So many other people out there are trying to rewrite their narratives and heal from this difficult journey. So begin exploring communities where you can connect with other people who understand. This can be online groups, local support networks, working with a coach or a therapist. I offer a free Facebook group for autistic people who want to heal from invalidation and thrive in their new relationships. So there's lots of communities out like that out there. So this is important, an important step of healing because healing doesn't just happen within you. It's about finding places where you're seen and heard and understood too. So when you can share the story with others, it takes away from isolation and you realize there are people out there who not only share your struggles, but can offer support and guidance as you heal. So just remember, you don't have to face this journey alone anymore. You can build a community and you can start to understand yourself and gain confidence in connecting with other people. Okay, so that is it. That's the journey I take my clients on, from going from a lifetime of misunderstanding, invalidation, and confusion to finding this explanation that makes it all make sense. Then reevaluating the past experiences through a new lens and connecting with who you really are, and then being able to connect and having meaningful relationships with others. This is how the invalidation heals and the self-acceptance begins. So I hope you found these steps to be valuable in your own journey of healing. And if today's conversation resonated with you and you're ready to connect with others, I recommend you join, one of those communities I was describing. I can put the link to mine in the comments below later. And there's also lots of other great options out there. Okay. So with that being said, any questions or anything before we wrap up today? I'm not seeing any, so thanks again for joining and have a good rest of your day.